Hello, testing. Hi, everyone. Very good afternoon to you all. So today, in the next 10 minutes or so, we'll be looking at answering this the following question. Oops, not too fast. So if you're looking to go into block development, do you need to learn React, which is the JavaScript library that the block editor is written in? And the answer to such a question is always a resounding, it depends. And in my opinion, there are two approaches to get into block development. So then the next question would be, what is it dependent on? So I would say that it depends on which of the two approaches you'll be undertaking. So the first one would be to lean towards using PHP. And with this approach, it's quite likely that you will be using a third-party framework like Advanced Custom Fields, which provides you with a pretty neat system to write your block entirely in PHP. And the most obvious benefit of this is how quick and easy it can be to get up and running. You don't have to worry about things like tooling and package management, that kind of stuff. It's also worth noting that plugins like Advanced Custom Fields, they are pretty popular in the WordPress ecosystem. So it's quite likely that you are already familiar with its API. And leveraging its familiarity to do something new is always very appealing, especially to seasoned WordPress developers and PHP developers. And this is also a very versatile approach. You can create simple to complex blocks. And with this approach, you will be writing predominantly PHP because of what the framework provides. You can easily write your block from start to finish entirely in PHP. There's very minimal JavaScript required, if at all, and let alone React. So in this case, back to the question, if you're going to go with this approach, is it necessary to learn React? In my opinion, I don't think you need to, but this is also based on the assumption that you are using a third-party framework like Advanced Custom Fields, because if you're not, then things can get a little bit more complicated. But just for simplicity's sake, we're just going to assume that you'll be using a framework, and in that case, it allows you to write entirely in PHP from start to finish. But the idea of using a third-party dependency to do something fundamental with WordPress development can be a deal breaker to many people. Lack of future-proofing, incompatibilities are some valid reasons for many to want to stay away from them and stick as closely as possible to doing things the WordPress way. So what is the WordPress way? That brings me to my second approach, which is JavaScript. So using JavaScript is also known as the official way of the official WordPress way of doing block development. This means that you'll be using API provided by WordPress core, which tend to focus more on being performant as well as providing a more superior editing experience. And just like the first approach, this is versatile. You can easily create simple or even complex blocks. You're definitely not restricted to a specific degree of complexity. It's also worth mentioning, though, that the term JavaScript and React are probably not very synonymous with WordPress development, at least until a few years ago. So if you have done any modern JavaScript development, you know that things like tooling, configuration, even getting your local environment up and running can sometimes be a small little project by itself. And not many of us actually have the luxury of time to go into that. So it's for this very reason, this approach could be quite a daunting one to start with if you're looking to get into block development. So With this JavaScript approach, as the name suggests, it's going to be very minimal PHP. You'll be writing mostly JavaScript. As with many other things in WordPress, though, you cannot really avoid writing PHP. In this case, the extent of PHP is probably going to be used for enqueuing scripts and registering your blog on the server side. I also want to point out that if you're writing a dynamic blog, depends on its complexity, there could be more PHP involved. But in this case, if you're just dealing with basic blocks, then it's going to be predominantly JavaScript. So back to the question, for approach number 2, is it necessary to learn React? And the answer is, you'll be surprised to see that it depends again. So what is it dependent on this time? I would say for JavaScript development, it's gonna vary depending on the complexity of the blog you'll be writing. If it's something simple that requires very minimal settings, then you could get away without learning too much React. I would say the blog editor handbook, for example, is a very good resource for you to get started. They have a create blog tutorial there to help you get your first blog up and running. However, though, if you're getting into pretty more complex blogs, then I would say that it's necessary to learn React, because as the complexity of the blog increases, you will find yourself getting into deeper concepts like state management, lifecycle, hooks. So, and you would probably need to understand those to help you with like debugging, and also to avoid common pitfalls with React development, like the infamous infinite loop when you use the use effect hook. So depends on the complexity of the log. And this is a little summary of whether to learn or not. Depends on which approach you're going to go with. So with PHP, again, assuming that you'll be going with a framework like Advanced Custom Fields, then you can use whatever API that the framework provides you to write your blog entirely in PHP. You don't have to worry about single line of React. So for JavaScript, if you're looking to do simple blocks, I pointed out that it's not really necessary because I feel that you still need maybe to have a cursory understanding of basic React concepts like state, component, and the JSX syntax. So all those concepts can be covered if you go through the blog tutorial on the blog editor handbook. And then again, if you're looking to do complex blocks, things that deal with the WordPress data storage, the data module, working with external data, then you would probably need to learn React. And I've also written an article on this very topic. So in this article, we actually go deeper into both approaches, provide more details, as well as some code examples on what constitutes a simple block as well and a complex block. So feel free to give it a read. The link is there, and you can scan the QR code as well. I think that's it. That's all I have. I would love to have a conversation with you all on this topic, but unfortunately, I don't think we have time for questions. But I'll be hanging around, so if you want to chat, feel free to reach out to me. If not, you can find me on social media from here.
All right. Thank you so much, Edmund. Okay, so.